Hello and welcome to E Pluribus Unum's Fireside Chats. Not as good stuff for DRs, but hey, it's something. And today is the day. It is the final E Pluribus Unum podcast of 2025. And by extension, the final video of 2025. Hopefully we can end the 2025 season on a high note. Though granted, I'm not sure if this episode will fulfill that need, especially considering the last episode that came out was pretty interesting. And not sure if I can necessarily top that one in quality. We'll try for it anyways. But before we get into that, I guess I should go into a little bit more housekeeping. Well, not I guess a little bit more, but just reiterating points from previous ones. And this is going to be I'm going to put it on a community post as well for those who really don't know. I don't know if I'll put like a extra special video for that or whatever, but like, if you don't remember, for the month of January of 2026, there will not be a single quote-unquote main series edited video. So like, no Who Is videos, no Politics and Medias, no Party History videos, no Mexican Election Series videos. None of those videos will be releasing in January. On the stuff that is related to this channel, I'll be using that time to write and producing episodes of the podcast. There will also I'll probably do things like behind the scenes that are unrelated to it, just to generally give myself a little bit of time to kind of like refuel and reboot myself in a sense. Main series edited podcasts will resume on a bi-weekly schedule on February 12th of 2026. This time will be used to basically rebuild a backlog, like write a couple of videos that will be released in the following, February, March, April, May. And then, hopefully that will continue, I'll have enough of a backlog so I can at the very least just kind of go back to the previous revolving door schedule of the main series videos that I used to have. Will I be able to succeed in that endeavor? I don't know. I hope so. I think one thing that I might do in January is use the Thursdays where episodes I guess would normally come out and put just link some old episodes and be like Throwback Thursday or whatever. But that's not really that important. With that out of the way, let's get right into the news. First news story is an update on Honduras. And it's a sad one because the coup has succeeded. The Honduran electoral body has certified the election results for Nasri Asfura. Tito has been declared the victor. And it's unfortunately this is the thing. It's just sad. It's why is it that... and this is one thing that really just bothers me, but the whole right-wing grift in a lot of these things, because how does it feel? How does it feel knowing that your ideology only wins when you have to rig it? Because these election results were rigged. It's very abundantly clear these election results were rigged. The National Party has rigged election results in Honduras before, but literally also, even before Donald Trump publicly got involved in this race, the election observers literally explicitly said, the election people who were in the National Party literally explicitly said their plan was to delay the election results so that nobody could declare victory, so that they could sow results, so they could make it so that nobody could trust the election results at all. And again, for those thinking oh, you just mad because your candidate lost. No, I didn't even predict my candidate would win. I predicted my candidate was going to get second place, Rixi Monsada. I predicted that she was going to get second, and the winner was going to be Salvador Nasrallah, because Salvador Nasrallah was the one who was obviously the one that was winning. The only one that I was explicitly no, the election results, if they are this person, it is not a legitimate election, would have been Asfura, because, again, the National Party has been accused of electoral fraud in the past. Much in the same way in Mexico, you can't, if the PRI declares victory, everybody's going to raise their arms and be are you sure you won? Because there is already so many problems with electoral rigging in the nation. It's just you can't really pretend that that's... And yeah, this situation has basically solidified. Pink Tide Wave 3 is sadly over. You had a good run, boys, but unfortunately, it's just not happening. like, I mean, Pink Tide Wave 3, you got some good ones. You got AMLO, you got Arce, you got Ziamara, you had Petro, and I think Claudia Sheinbaum and Orsi might be good. I don't know about the rest of them. Like, I mean, Fernandez was fine. Castillo was obviously not good. Boric was just kind of like at best, you could call him mid. And Arvalo, I haven't been paying a lot of attention about what he's been doing. I should probably get back to paying attention to him a little bit, because I think his election's coming up in like 2027, I think. Well, I don't think he can run, but you get what I mean. Guatemala is up in the next election in 2027. And yeah, me saying Pink Tide Wave 3 is dead is probably not going to paint a lot of the upcoming elections in Latin America in a positive light. Because I'm not sure if they will. It really depends, I guess, because, you know, one of the big problems is that now that Donald Trump is president, he's obviously just going to explicitly try to rig and try to ruin the elections in Latin America. And many people have pointed out that his more than likely next target is going to be Colombia, because Colombia's election is coming up soon as well. And we just covered a story last week about how the president of Costa Rica is explicitly trying to rig the election himself for his party, and, well, that doesn't really bode so well for Costa Rica. I think really the only one that's probably going to be safe is Brazil, but that's because Lula is running for another term. And Lula wouldn't necessarily count in the sort of like Pink Tide whatevers. I think ultimately, even if like any of those other ones do win, I think it would basically just mean that would be the beginning of Wave 4 of the Pink Tide, because I kind of like did kind of think like, I was even at the point where I was thinking that Luisa Gonzalez, if she won in Ecuador, that would have been the beginning of Wave 4. I would have even possibly gave it like, if it was like that and Sheinbaum, I would have given it, if she won, then I would have labeled Sheinbaum and Orsi as Wave 4 and not Wave 3. Because I could see some difference, because the way if you don't know how this works, I'm gonna like, if I haven't put the picture in the podcast already, here it is. But if you notice, I have like 3 waves of the Pink Tide: Wave 1, Wave 2, Wave 3. Each of them are roughly under 10 years. Like they're not complete decades, but they're like roughly decades. And each of the waves sort of has like a different vibe to an extent. You see, Wave 1 is like obviously like the first wave, you know, the ones that I don't really know how to describe the first wave necessarily. I wouldn't necessarily say it's like not as radical or like whatever, but like you can definitely see that there are some elements where they're not as radical as you could probably say, you know, like I mean, Chavez is of course probably the most radical of the bunch, and then with Morales, and the rest of them are kind of like more of the, that's why it's called the Pink Tide. Then Wave 2, you kind of got like Wave 2, the thing that really shows Wave 2 is like, one, many of the people who were in Wave 1 either like died or were succeeded in elections, and Wave 2 also saw an expansion. But one of the elements that really also made a major difference in Wave 2 is not even necessarily positives or negatives. Like, I mean, one thing that you'll see is that it's positive in Wave 2 is that there are a lot more women in the fold, and one thing that's also a bit of a negative is that you'll see 2 leaders in, I guess you could say 3, depending on your interpretations. It could be, like, I mean, let's look at them all. Well, not look at them all, but like the ones I'm talking about. Maduro is obviously no Chavez. He is not as good as Chavez. That's putting it lightly. Cristina Fernandez Kirchner, it's not that she was particularly bad, but she literally spent half of her administration grieving over her dead husband, so she really didn't get to do much. Dilma Rousseff was bogged down by a lot of bureaucracy, and Daniel Ortega and Ollanta Humala basically were turncoats for their own political ideologies. I mean, obviously it's not as like, it's obviously not completely like the saying, like, I mean, Pepe Mujica was an improvement over Vasquez, but that was also other elements that did make like certain elements of like, they just kind of got dragged down a lot. Meanwhile, Wave 3 was sort of like a strange, interesting one, because one, you see, a couple of the ones in the earlier stages, they had like to dance around. Like, really very few of them were like explicitly radical in their politics. But then you got like this next wave, and a lot of them were pretty radical in their politics. You know, like Luis Arce was back to radicalism in regards to Bolivia. Then there came Xiomara Castro and Petro, and I guess technically Boric. But there's, again, it's a little hard to explain, but I would say that generally Wave 3 kind of was a little bit more interesting to an extent. Not even necessarily. It just had a different vibe, and that was a big thing. It also could just be because, that was the vibe where a lot of Gen Z and, millennial socialism kind of became a thing, but, regardless. But there's not much for me to say on this, except hopefully when things turn around, things will turn around way better for the people of, I hope for the best for the people of Honduras. I hope we're all gonna be in a bad situation for a while, so we might as well start talking and get start organizing a rally, start organizing protests and stuff. But anyways, next news story is a very interesting one. Donald Trump has randomly decided to attack Nigeria. Now let's read a little bit about it. After spending weeks accusing Nigeria's government of failing to tackle the persecution of Christians, Donald Trump announced a series of strikes in the West African country on Christmas Day. The strikes, targeting Islamic State militants in the country's north, marked the latest overseas military intervention of Donald Trump, who campaigned on a promise to extradite the U.S. from decades of endless wars during the 2024 presidential election. Now, one big thing that people have pointed out is the big obvious lie in regards to how this happened. You see, because the Trump administration has tried to say that they were in talks with the government of Nigeria to attack ISIS. And then the government of Nigeria said, you didn't even attack ISIS and you didn't contact us first. So it's, again, a big lie. And that's when I learned that ISIS is apparently still around. Because I remember, back in, 2014, they literally said, ISIS was no longer a threat. They literally said, ISIS was no longer a threat. And I guess it's just because there are some people who are still actively fighting for the cause that are definitely... But I don't even necessarily know. Because, on one end, it's aren't you claiming that the government of Nigeria... Because this is the big thing. This whole big thing that everybody's been going around is the government of Nigeria is persecuting Christians, and it's just really? Are you sure? Because I gotta be honest, you guys kind of lost the claim that there's massive religious I mean, you guys are the same guys who also claim that white people are being attacked in South Africa based on no evidence. So I mean, is there persecution of Christians in, Nigeria? It's the thing that literally started Nicki Minaj's fascist arc, so it's is that, a thing? And it turns out, I'm just going off the Wikipedia page of it, and it's literally just, it just looks like this is, a dispute among, two religious sects of people. When you say there's persecution of Christians in Nigeria, I mean, my assumption would be the government of Nigeria is persecuting Christians? Meanwhile, these are the same people who want to turn the United States into a country that persecutes every other religious minority group. You guys have no leg to stand on. All your gods are nonsense. You're speaking fairy tale nonsense. Let's move on to the next story. And the next story is a very sad, tragic story, which should very much be massive alarm flags for everybody who is actually interested in any sort of rule of law. The Department of Homeland Security is deporting a woman by the name of Dulce Consuelo Diaz Morales, who is a 22-year-old mother from Maryland. She had to spend the holy day of Christmas, according to all of you guys, separated from her 5-year-old son at a detention center in Texas after being moved from facilities in Baltimore and Louisiana following her arrest by ICE in Baltimore on December 14th. And one big thing is that a judge in her case has explicitly stated that you cannot deport her. And the biggest reason why they can't deport her is because she is a United States citizen. So they can't deport her. And yet despite that, she is still being detained by ICE, who is still fighting desperately to claim that she is not a citizen, even though she is. And that's one of the big things. It's not about citizenship. It's about racism. It is. It's about racism. It's about race. It's about race. That's what it is. It's about race. All these fucking losers. It's about race. It's about race. That's all it is. Like, bro, they lost the plot the second they started, like, harassing Native Americans, like, indigenous Americans. That's the second they lost any credibility on this issue. The second the Trump administration went to courts to fight over the ability to legally discriminate against people because of their race. That's the second. The second that it happened. And it's just like, there really isn't much I can say, because there really isn't. There just truly isn't anything really I can add to this story. Because the fact of the matter is, what's gonna happen? Like, what is going to happen? Because there have been many cases on this point that have happened. There are many cases like this that have happened, where United States citizens have been detained and harassed by ICE, despite the fact that they are American citizens, natural American citizens sometimes, and then they just explicitly, like, and then ICE just lies about it. ICE lied about a man dying in their custody not that long ago. It's like, oh, he must have suicided. Yeah, sure, he was tied up and suicided himself. That's really how it works. And 30 people have died under ICE watch. The fact that Donald Trump is literally fighting to deport Kilmar Garcia to a country he's never been to, it's just like, literally, there's nothing else to add to the story. Because what's gonna happen? What are you guys gonna do? No one's doing anything. Like, guys, this is just a thing. He's getting away with it. Like, you do know this, right? If he's not being held accountable, there's literally no reason. And it's even to the point where it's like, if they're not being held accountable, there's no reason for you to be held accountable. Laws are universal. If no one else is above the law, no one's above the law. If they can break the law, you can. That's the rules. That's the rules. That's the rules now. They can shit there and cry and piss and shit themselves all day long, but it's like, they brought it upon themselves. Sucks for them. You broke the laws. They get to break the laws too. That's fair. Fair is fair. You guys are breaking the laws. You guys don't understand. Like, you open the floodgates. Like, that's why the Trump and the conservatives are like spinning around being like, but if liberals if the Dems get in charge now, then they're gonna do this. It's like, yeah, at this point they should. I'll just say it. They should. Like, we're done playing nice. Niceness is over. Every single scary boogeyman that you think the left is gonna do, and they went, sure. Just sure. At this point, just run on it, and people will vote for it. Because they're tired of it. They're just literally tired of it. And I think the cracks are starting to form here, because there's a thing that happened that kind of shows the cracks forming. So, if you don't remember, Bari Weiss, a stupid loser who is somehow relevant to news media, she bought CBS News, and in buying CBS News, she acquired the rights of a prominent news thing called 60 Minutes. She owns not only CBS News, but she also owns I don't know if she owns. She doesn't own Paramount. No, not point. She doesn't own that, but it's they're part of it, and they're kissing up to the Trump administration, like a lot of news media companies. That's why CNN invited that fascist guy to basically suck Trump's cock every day, and it's basically a big thing. But one of the biggest things that happened very recently was in particular when 60 Minutes was planning to release a segment on their show called Inside a CCOT, which was going to detail the very bad conditions inside the CCOT center that, they illegally send immigrants to. The immigrant torture center that they have been sending people to. And despite the fact that it was very quickly scheduled to be released on a particular day, almost the day or two before it was slated to be released, it was announced that the segment was pulled. It was pulled for reasons that they didn't really make explicitly clear, which it later said that Bari Weiss said it was that because they didn't get the DHS's comment on the story, and everyone was a bit mad. But then came the very interesting, funny tidbit that happened when apparently they apparently didn't schedule it. They apparently changed their minds about it at the end so quick that they didn't even get the time to tell the Canadian affiliate that airs their content, Global TV, had already aired the segment. They didn't air it, but it was available on digital. And then someone recorded it and then also downloaded it off of there. And those videos just started spreading all across the internet. And almost very quickly, Bar Weiss should have taken it down, started issuing copyright claims, that kind of stuff. But it was too late. It was too late. That story already spread. And people quickly point out, it's not necessarily that she was like, and then we saw this thing where it's Stephen Miller said something along the lines of the person who leaked that memo, the person who leaked the story to the people, they should be fired and blah blah blah. It's it wasn't. First of all, it wasn't leaked. It was publicly availably posted. You guys were just too stupid to actually stop it from airing. But also no, you guys break the law every day. Screw off, fuck off. And libs, everybody who knows this, libs, if you posted it, if you downloaded it, you broke the law. Guys, you did. You committed copyright infringement. So at most, what's going to happen is it's just going to get taken down. At most, you might get a little bit of a fine. But again, but this thing, I do genuinely hope that this thing did help one thing. I genuinely hope that this kind of finally wakes people up in regards to copyright law, because the fact that, again, Barry Weiss owns a magic piece of paper that says she can tell you which stories do and do not get released to the public, and it's just no. The fact that you did that, no, fuck you. That's not happening. And hopefully, and I mean this hopefully, next time if 60 Minutes someone decides to cancel the story, I hope someone does leak it. I genuinely hope someone does leak it. If you are in the I'll pull it up. I just gotta say, I gotta pull it up. It's I gotta shout out my boy, not my boy specifically, but I gotta shout out the man, the myth, the legend himself, Aaron Swartz. I started posting segments of his speech, out there because this is very important. Information is power, but like all power, there are those who want to keep it for themselves. The world's entire scientific and cultural heritage, published over centuries in books and journals, is increasingly being digitized and locked up by a handful of private corporations. Those with access to these resources, students, librarians, scientists, you have been given a privilege. You get to feed at this banquet of knowledge while the rest of the world is locked out. But you need not, indeed morally you cannot, keep this privilege for yourselves. You have a duty to share it with the world, and you have, trading passwords with colleagues, filing downloads requests for friends. Meanwhile, those who have been locked out and are not standing idly by, you've been sneaking through holes and climbing over fences, liberating the information locked up by the publishers and sharing them with your friends. There is no justice in following unjust laws. It's time to come into the light and, in the grand tradition of civil disobedience, declare our opposition to this private theft of public culture. We need to take information wherever it is stored, make our copies, and share them with the world. With enough of us around the world, we'll not just send a strong message opposing the privatization of knowledge, we'll make it a thing for the past. Will you join us? And that's the thing. That's the kind of thing that we need to do. If you genuinely are afraid of if you genuinely like this, you need to make a copy. I mean, there are copies out there. Many of us have copies out there of the 60-minute story. Whether they be through their own jerry-rigged versions of it, or whether it be the video file that was uploaded of that person recording the TV, or it come from the broadcast version. Be it as it may, they're out there. And it's also why we have to fight hard for sources like free and open internet spaces like YouTube and stuff to be around. Because if these spaces get bought up soon, then what's going to be left of the information like that is just going to be put under massive paywalls and or just completely eradicated. It's one of the big reasons, again, copyright is BS, and why everybody should be less stringent in favor of copyright. Anyways, let's move on to the next story, and it's about the Heritage Foundation. More specifically, that the Heritage Foundation is collapsing. Now, for those who don't know what the Heritage Foundation is, I don't really necessarily think that you would you would know what the Heritage Foundation is at this point. But for those who don't know what the Heritage Foundation is, it's an American right-wing think tank that's been prominent in U.S. politics since 1973. And for lack of a better term, they've basically been the shadowy cabal that has been running all of the Republican administrations since the Reagan years. And every single year for a while, I guess basically ever since the Reagan years, they've been publishing these books called Mandate for Leadership. And those books are basically top things that they want the next conservative administration to do, like the next Republican administration to do in their like political plans. And their most recent one for that was published on April 2022 was called Project 2025, which is of course the big scary plan that the Trump administration has been doing for its entirety of its term. And despite the fact that the Heritage Foundation has quote unquote won, things are getting really bad now, because apparently the Heritage Foundation is imploding because of essentially the incoming divide amongst the reactionary movement in the United States. Because, guys, the reactionary movement in the United States, the American right wing, their only route to remain politically relevant is to become Nazis. Guys, as much as you can pretend it's not true, it is. I'm saying this with 100% certainty. The next Republican president will have to be endorsed by Nick Fuentes. That is a fact. And I know this because the latest Republican presidents couldn't win without the Nick Fuentes endorsement. Trump's 2016 bid is what led to Nick Fuentes to become a thing. He got Nick Fuentes' endorsement in 2020, and Nick Fuentes was on his way to endorse Kanye West's bid against Donald Trump, but Trump had to call both of them into the White House to cozy up to him, specifically so that they wouldn't run an independent bid against him. And now all these Republican politicians are now coming out of the woodwork, now all of a sudden be like, oh no, we can't have Nick Fuentes. Like, no, guys, you don't understand. If you don't have Nick Fuentes, you're not winning. You're not winning if you don't have Nick Fuentes. Like, you guys claim your whole base is like, we have to appeal to young men. It's like, guys, no, you don't understand. If you don't appeal to Nick Fuentes, your young men base is leaving. That is your base. You guys made your bed, now you have to lie in it. And the fact of the matter is, these guys are realizing it. The right wing, like, they're realizing it. They're either reflexively trying to stop this at the last second when it's way too late, they literally can't stop it, or they just have to accept that fact and move forward. And the head of the Heritage Foundation literally has. He defended, like, Tucker Carlson platforming Nick Fuentes and called out conservatives who were even considering calling out the fact that Tucker Carlson had Nick Fuentes on. And now, very recently, many members of the Heritage Foundation are leaving to join Mike Pence's, like, thing. Like, Mike Pence's, like, I guess, conservative advocacy group. Because it's like, they've realized they literally threw everything away for Donald Trump and the possibility of getting good graces amongst this new, like, fascist right. And they're not getting anything in return. The Heritage Foundation used to be in favor of things like free markets. And now, all of a sudden, they're advocating for protectionism and for the United States government to have direct control over the Federal Reserve. Like literally, they're rotted. Their whole movement has rotted. And it's glorious to see. I mean, this is the thing. Like, I don't feel bad for a single one of these people. They all made their choice. You guys made the choice a long time ago. You guys were insulting the, like, left-wing college kids who were saying, hey, you guys are, like, palling around with fascists. And now you guys are, like, you guys made your bed, now you go lie in it. I don't feel bad. I especially don't feel bad for people like Ben Shapiro. Because Ben Shapiro's one is so blatantly obvious that it's just like, he was fine with the racism and the sexism and the misogyny and all this other stuff. But the second it started going to his particular in-group that he liked, all of a sudden, oh no, I can't have any of that. But anyways, let's move on to this next story, this last story that is an interesting story that I kind of feel like is, I guess it's somewhat apt considering the last episode that I made. So let's just read a little bit about it. Okay, so the U.S. is currently undergoing its fastest religious shift in modern history, marked by a rapid increase in the religiously unaffiliated and numerous church closing nationwide. Like, according to basically all the recent studies, nearly 3 in 10 American adults identify as religiously unaffiliated. 57% of Americans seldom or never attend religious services. 4 in 10 of American citizens ages 18 to 29, or 38%, are religiously unaffiliated. And 15,000 churches are expected to close down. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that, I guess, well, like, I mean, just because it's like religiously affiliated does not necessarily mean atheism is on the rise necessarily, because it points out that this is more of just like an association with like the religious institutions, like churches. Roughly, I guess it's mostly churches, but like it's like, I mean, it brings up that Richard Dawkins and Carl Sagan clips are getting like millions of views this year, and it's clearly showing that there is still a heavy route of atheism still out there. But it's also pointing out that there's a lot of other like, just like general like new age like spiritualist things that are going on. And it also brings up a depressing one, how there's a lot of AI apps that are related to the Bible that are also being spread, with the article even going so far as to state that like, because some people like are just trying to pretend that it's not true. Like, I mean, literally, I think like a lot of accounts trying to make the claim like, oh, young men are like massively like shifting back to the church or whatever, and it's like, it's not really true. I mean, sure, there might be some anecdotal people, and like some people obviously would probably still go to church, but I mean, clearly there is a religious shift, and they even point out that it's actually making things a little harder for people, because this is actually a really good thing. Now that people are not going to church, now people are actually approaching questions of politics and questions of ethics and stuff a lot more like critically. Like now, like back in the old days, a politician would literally just go to a church and just say, hey guys, blah blah blah, God, blah blah blah, religion, blah blah blah, this, and then hand them flyers for their canvassing. But now you can't do that with a person who isn't religious and won't just say like, oh, well, you're religious too? You believe in this magic fairy tale too? Congratulations. Now I guess I have to vote for you. It's my moral duty. So yeah, I mean, I just find it kind of funny that this is happening like right at the same time that I made that video where I epically debunked Jesus Christ. So it's like, maybe I did more than I thought. But I mean, again, that's something I did say in that episode where it's like, I mean, the only two routes to me that make sense after the research I did on all that stuff was literally like, either you believe in like the new age like BS of like every single religion is right and like all that other stuff or whatever, believe in the stupid stuff, or you don't believe any of them are right and you believe they're all wrong. But yeah, with that out of the way, let's move on to the main topic of this video. This is a video. This was actually intended to be like a 2-ish videos that I made, because I mean, what this video is that this video is going to be me going over the best and a little bit of the worst EPU videos in history. But before we get into that, I want to get into a little bit about like what I kind of wanted to do to an extent. You see, I had originally planned for the first episodes of 2024 to be like the two main series videos of 2024 to be a top 10 best EPU videos and top 10 worst EPU videos. Because that was supposed to be like the beginning of like the year, and it's like, now that we've done like 5 years of this channel, now we can reflect on all the videos of the past and then see how things are. But at the last minute, I realized dedicating 2 entire videos of 1 month to this particular subject was stupid. So I, at the last minute, changed my mind and did normal videos. But since I'm going to be not doing main series videos next month, I figured why not use this time to do a little bit of reflection on this, because now we won't be able to, now there will be time to like wait before more additions could possibly be added to the pile. Now originally for this video I just wanted to go over like the 10 best ones, but then I decided I wanted to do a little bit more interesting things. So what I decided to do is I decided to go through every single year and find the top 10 best podcasts of each year, the top 10 best videos of that year, go through all of them, and then after I do all of that, I will then go back and find the 10 videos from all together of those things that I find to be the best. Don't worry, I'll try to include time codes in the description that will make this process a little bit easier. But also, I decided since we're here, might as well look over the worst ones too. Because why not? Like, why not just go over all the video? Like, why not just go over the worst ones too? Because that would just make sense. Now, before we get into that, I want to address one major elephant in the room. Because there's one video that could hypothetically appear on both of the lists. And that is the video, How the Internet Influenced Our Politics. Which, for those who don't know, was the 4-hour video essay that I made that goes over all of the internet's political trends over its history. I start off with just the beginnings of the internet and its political spheres. Then I will go over things like the Howard Dean campaign, the Ron Paul campaign, Bernie and Trump, the alt-right, BreadTube, that kind of stuff. And that video was slated to be a really good one. I want to spend a lot of time researching that episode. I spent a lot of time writing, editing, finding stock footage, all that kind of stuff. But the process ended up taking so long that I ended up having to cut corners near the end, and it's I had a deadline to meet, and it's just it just did not work out. If I was better about it, I probably could have made it into a mini series and went over each of the ones separately, so that maybe I would have time to at the very least make the final episodes a bit more edited or whatever. But like I said, it could actually appear on the worst and the best for that reason, because it's a massive video project, but it still didn't really meet the mark. I even made a tier list of all the videos that I made, and I'm going to include it somewhere. I might make it into a post, but I literally put it on a tier of itself, saying it's complicated. Maybe after a long period of time of not thinking about that episode, I will be able to, make that video. I'll be able to rank that video properly. But as of now, I just can't. I just can't do that. I have too much memories of the hardships of making that video, and too much cringe of the fact that I didn't really finish it, to the point where I went back and retitled it partially unfinished, because it's just yeah. But anyways, let's just go over what are the 10 worst episodes that I have on my YouTube channel. Now, I won't be doing a top 10 worst podcast because, frankly, I can't narrow it down to 10, but top 10 worst videos is pretty easy. We'll start off with number 10, and that is my What is Third Positionism video. Now, believe it or not, that video isn't necessarily, the video itself is not bad. I don't think that video is bad in and of itself. I would actually say it's a pretty good episode. My only problem with that episode is the fact that every single time that I get a new comment on that episode, it's always the same fucking thing. A fucking fascist comes up and says some insane bullshit that's just this is just unfathomably untrue. You're lying to me. You're just saying nonsense. And why? Why did you come here and just say this nonsense? I just genuinely am tired of you. Why are you here? The biggest things that they try to do is try to debunk it by claiming something, and it's just I'll literally ask them for some sort of proof or something, and it's just they never can, because they know I'm right. They just know I'm right, because it'll be something actually third positionism is not fascism, and then I'll just say I usually say the same thing, if it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, it's a duck. But yeah, the video itself is fine. The only problem with that video is that I was sick during the production of it, but otherwise the video itself is fine. It's just what that video has brought to this channel. Bunch of fascists trying to come in to try and act like they're smart. The next video is the top 10 videos that I could do but won't. The reason why this episode is stupid is because I didn't need to make it at all. It was a stupid way to mimic the Nostalgia Critic, and it just really does not need to exist. Period. It just genuinely does not. Like, I mean, in the most honest sense, why? Why did you make this? Why is this video even a thing? You are stupid. Why did you make this at all? You didn't have to make this. And, yeah, not much else I could say on that. I just needed a slot to fill, and that was the one I chose to fill the slot with. Number 8 worst video. The 1917 Mexican presidential election. Now, video itself, I like that it started the series that I'd like to do, but the problem is, I probably should have just started with the first actual election in Mexican presidential election history. I probably should have just started with that episode. I get why I started on 1917, it was because it was the popular vote system or whatever, but honestly, I probably should have just done the full, all the way back to the original elections if I were to do this series again, because I think there is the ability that I could do that entire series all over again. Not all of it. I mean, I would probably leave the 2024 election out of it, but there is a possibility that maybe I could possibly do that whole series again. And if I were to do it again, I would start by doing all the elections that I did not do. Video is generally fine, but I should have started with the earlier ones. The 7th worst video of my channel is the What is Paleoconservatism video. In and of itself, the video is not inherently bad. It's one of the generic, political ideology videos that I shat out when I needed to fill in a slot to prepare for a much bigger video that was going to go on. The big problem was, for a long period of time, that episode was my most popular video on this channel, and it really did not really paint the channel in a good light that, one, the most popular the video of the channel was of an ideology that wasn't mine, and also that it was a video that was significantly lower quality than all of the other ones. Even of the time period, it's just, yeah, I just really did not want to do that episode. That episode probably just isn't the best. The 6th worst video on this channel is the history of US presidential debates. Now, again, the episode in and of itself isn't bad. I don't quite necessarily have that much of a problem with the episode in and of itself. But there's one glaring issue in my head that I cannot, for the life of me, figure out if... this is the thing. I do not know this fact about this video. I don't know if the video was created and then because around the time that this episode came out, I had watched a documentary on YouTube about the history of the United States presidential debates. And I genuinely do not have a single clue if I wrote this episode and then watched that documentary, or if I watched that documentary and then made the episode. I would bet money that I wrote the video and then I saw the other video, but I genuinely, for the life of me, can't figure it out. And that uncertainty really just goes all I do in the video is recite facts, so it's not necessarily that bad, but it's just I don't know. Maybe if I find that documentary that I watched and then watch the thing again, maybe that could be a future podcast episode idea, or it's a reaction where it's I watched that video and I watched this video and it's was this episode bad or not? Now the next one I think is actually bad for the episode itself, and it is my What Are New Democrats video. And the reason why is because, honestly, I don't have to do much. I just have to play the episode, and then you'll see why it's not the best. For one, it's a very early episode, so audio and visual quality is just not good. And also, I didn't do one about the ideology itself. I kind of like, it just really wasn't that well put together. If you watch it, you'll see what I mean. But yeah, it just wasn't the best. The next episode, which is one that I don't like, is my Who is Jack Feller video. Because it's bad for a number of reasons. It's one of my earliest videos, so visual and audio wise, it's bad. Even worse, I chose the most eye-grating color for the video, bright pink, because that was the Wikipedia color for the Prohibition Party. Super fucking bad. And it's just, since there wasn't much about Jack Feller's life that I had, there wasn't much to really say in the episode, which is why it's so short. So yeah, just genuinely, it's just not the best. It's just not the best, and I just genuinely did not like it. Now, the third worst video in this channel's history is the Colors in Politics episode. And the reason why this video is bad is because this is probably the closest video that I have on the channel that could technically be counted as plagiarism. Because what had happened was I saw a YouTuber make a video about this exact subject, and then I saw at the end of that video, they said, now tune in next week when I tell you guys why the Democrats are blue and the Republicans are red when it should be the other way around. And then that video never came out, and that channel briefly died for a bit of time. So I decided to basically revive that exact subject and then make my own video on this thing. Then it would then become I would lead into a video that I made on the subject. When, in retrospect, the much smarter idea would have been to basically make the video that he promised and then go to the original video and say, this channel disappeared. If you guys want to know the real reason why, you can go to my channel. I posted a video just about that. And yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily hate this episode per se, just because, again, it was more of just a generic reading of the facts of the situation. I mean, yeah. But the obvious fact is obvious. The next worst video, the second worst video on this channel, is the top 60 US House members video. Now, if you don't know, the video was originally intended to be a top 435 US House members thing, similar to how my Senate ranking videos are supposed to inevitably lead to a top 100 best Senate ranking. But I just didn't have enough time to make a full 435 fucking people. I didn't have enough time for that, so I limited it to only 60. And then, due to the fact that the whole point of that thing was for me to just get a brief biography of all the people, basically it would be a one sentence number 435, blah 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 blah, number 434, blah 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 blah. 433, blah, 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 433. It would be like that. You would just go through all of these people. And dude, that was the original intention. But since it was lowered down to 60, I didn't account for that in the actual research. And when I did that, I ended up accidentally putting some people on the list that I probably should not have put on the list. Maybe I'll make a Patreon reaction series of that just to see how bad it is. Because I don't remember all the people I put on there. I remember a certain number of them. But yeah. Probably isn't the best. And lastly, the worst video of the EPU channel is none other than the 4 politicians killed on camera. It was a pretty good video in a pretty good intentioned video, except one big problem is that for some reason during the exporting process of the video, the audio for the music that I wanted to put in the background just really fucking failed. I don't know what the fuck happened. I genuinely don't know what happened. But it failed. And sure enough, it's just so bad. It's just like, this video just fucking sucks. I hate it. I hate it with every fiber of my being. And I just want it to die. This video should not exist. But it's staying up because it's just that bad. Alright, here we are with the videos of whatever. First, I'm going to start off with the 2018 videos. This was my first year on this channel, and naturally, there were a lot of videos I could have I'm generally not necessarily the biggest fan of a lot of the earliest videos that I made, because, I just kind of generally kind of as time moves forward, I have to improve. And sure enough, I do think I did a massive improvement on a lot of the videos that I made. And I do think that there is a lot of good things that I made. But let's just go over the videos I liked. The 10 videos I thought were the best, and these ones are in no particular order. The rest of these villains will not be in any particular order until the finalists for all of the videos and podcasts over the course of the year. These are going to be I'm going to go over them chronologically because it's just how I saw them. So first, we have the first video of them all, the top 10 third-party performances post-1900. The OG video that started it all. Just kind of a soft spot for that one. Not much for me to say on that. Next one is one of my earliest videos, the History of the Reform Party video. It was generally fine. It was kind of like the first party history video, we could tell, but it did go through a lot of the Reform Party's history to an extent. But next video was the History of the Libertarian Party video, which took the party history video format and made it better because it was longer and it included some video clips, and it was just generally pretty good. I would say that one was better than the other one. The next one was Who is Eugene V. Debs? First, it wasn't my first Who Is video. That was Jack Feller, but it was the first Who Is video that, again, had enough time to give to its subject matter, because there was a lot more to say about Eugene Debs than there was about Jack Feller. And even though, again, suffers from mistakes of early video channel, but I would say it still kind of goes well with the video format. The next video is Why Aren't Democrats Red and Republicans Blue? Since I got that subject first, and this was one that was actually I wrote and did research on my own, I thought it was pretty nice. I thought it was pretty good. It's kind of like a smaller video, but for a smaller video, it is pretty good. The next one is the top 11 best senators. Even though I don't necessarily agree with some of the listings nowadays, I would generally say that video was pretty well put together, pretty well researched, and again, for an early content producer, it's pretty good. The next one is The Other 2012 Democrats. I liked that one because I like the subject matter of the Other series, because it's kind of like one of the initial focuses of the channel, because my initial focus of the channel was focus on the minor parties, because the mainstream media kind of forgot to do so, and that was kind of the same thing with the Other 2012 Democrats. The mainstream media didn't cover John Wolfe Jr., so I'd cover him. I'd cover his antics in that election. The next one was another party history video, the History of the American Independent Party, a video that really was pretty good. I mean, there's not much for me to say in regards to that. I would generally, again, I guess it's just, there wasn't that much to cover. There wasn't that much in the first year of the video, in the channel series. I don't have much to say on that one, but I just thought it was nice. I thought it was pretty fine. And the next one is the history of all three progressive parties. Now, I do like that idea of like doing like one of like all these parties put together, but in retrospect, if I were to go through those again, I would do each of the progressive parties individually. But for what it is, it's a pretty good video. And 10th best video of 2018 was the top 10 E Pluribus Unum screw-ups of 2018. Now, for the sake of this, let's just go over the best podcasts of the year. Similarly to the first video, first podcast gets the first slot. Because even though, again, it's bad, it's the first podcast. I even included a warning that it was bad because it was a rambly whatever podcast. But, yeah. It's still the first one, and I did well for what it did. I just explained my political ideology at the time. The next one was the episode 6, which was the attempted live stream. Even though it sucks, because, I'm, I guess, not going to go live streaming, I did genuinely think it was fine. It was a fine experiment, Probably should have, like, given myself a little bit of time before I just jumped into streaming, but, it was pretty fine. Number 3 is episode 8, the John Wolfe Jr. interview. First interview, and yeah, it was just something I was really interested in. I was really interested in talking to a fucking presidential candidate. That was pretty fucking cool, even though John Wolfe Jr. is like a fucking like tiny candidate. It's just nice. Like, I mean, it's just cool to be like, I talked to a guy who ran for president. That's pretty cool. The next one is the John Wolfe Jr. interview 2, episode 12 of the podcast. Even though that one had a little bit of a issue, considering I had already recorded a podcast, and then John Wolfe Jr. like hit me up out of nowhere, and then like wanted to do another interview, that kind of stuff. I mean, it was fine. It was generally fine. I don't really hate it that much. It was a pretty fine interview. Not as good as the first one, because the first one kind of felt like a bit more magical. This one has kind of a bit more of an obligation, but whatever. The next best episode was E Pluribus Unum Fireside Chats episode 15, Why I Dem Exited, and it's the one thing I think is funny. That's a bit of a lie. I was never a member of the Democratic Party, so that episode's a bit of a fucking lie. But it's basically just me going over like a ton of the times where the Democratic Party like screwed over like progressive insurgency challengers. Now, granted, that one had a little bit of a drama behind it because it was when I attempted to join the website We Are Progressives, and they kind of like shat on me because I was like a tiny, like basically fresh out of high school. I don't even know if I was still in high school at the time, but I basically tried to join in that group, and they basically like didn't give me a single understanding of what to do and what to do, and it's just like, okay. The next best podcast is E Pluribus Unum Fireside Chats episode 17, The Good and Bad About John McCain. It was basically just me giving my general, I guess, thoughts on John McCain, I guess, again, the good and bad. And, I mean, I don't remember much about it, but, I remember when I first saw John McCain die, I was like, oh shit, this is like actually like, wow, that's insane. But, yeah. Anyways, the next one is episode 20, my thoughts on Dave Rubin, which was an episode, it started off the main sub-series of the podcast, Thoughts On. And what a good one to start with. Dave Rubin. A lot has changed about Dave Rubin ever since that episode came out. And it's just so insane that 2018, that era is just so vastly different than now. It's just so weird. The next best episode is the 2018 Brazil election video, episode 24. Now, granted, that episode came out literally a day after the results came in. I like this because of the fact that I literally predicted with almost eerie accuracy what the results were going to be. The results weren't 1-to-1, but they were roughly in the same range that it was like, I think it was literally like almost, I got like the exact numbers wrong, but it was literally like pretty close. The next best podcast is The Good and Bad About George H.W. Bush. And yeah, it was a pretty good episode about George H.W. Bush. Not much else for me to say because I don't remember much about it because it's been so long ago, but Yeah. And the 10th best EPU Fireside Chats episode was episode 33. My review of Fahrenheit 11/9 was my first Michael Moore documentary. It was a pretty good one, and, pretty decent way to close out the year at the time. Whatever. But, what are the best videos? Well, if I had to say, I would say that the best Fireside Chat of 2018 was my episode with John Wolfe Jr., the first one, because, again, it's fucking cool to interview a presidential candidate, even if that presidential candidate is a literal nobody. I think that's just fucking cool. And the best EPU video of 2018 would have to be my History of the Libertarian Party video. That one just overall blows the rest out of proportion. Granted, again, this is 2018, so videos are not necessarily the best. So, yeah. And with that, let's move on to 2019. Things were still not necessarily the best. Things were starting to improve. I was getting involved in a lot more dramas, which was a bad thing. But this was generally when things started somewhat improving a little bit. And we're going to start with the podcast this time just because, let's give it a little bit of time to spice it up. So, for the podcast, the first one I would say is pretty good is episode 36, my interview with Green Party presidential candidate Ian Schlockman. Now, granted, Ian Schlockman turned out to be a fucking loser hack, but the interview with him was pretty good. I'd have to say that one was pretty fine. It was pretty interesting, and I liked it. I would think that it was a pretty good one. The next episode that I would say is a good one is episode 44, What the Heck is Going On in Venezuela? And it was the first episode where I kind of delved into sort of like the imperialist foreign policy of the United States. And it's a pretty good one because, again, this was kind of like just me going over like an event that was going on in Venezuela and, just seeing how things went. And the next episode that I thought was interesting was episode 48, the Draft Cecil Bothwell for Senate video. Granted, that draft campaign clearly went nowhere, and it was a doomed effort from the start, but it was just interesting to kind of do. It was just basically me shouting at Cecil Bothwell for being a cool politician. And the next one that I thought was good was episode 46, my interview with Senator Kinamo Christine Moyo of Sisa Curry. She's a very interesting individual, and apparently be on the lookout because she's apparently running for president in 2028. According to her Twitter page, she has the Sedinem 2028 domain locked on her page, so it's seems like that's something she's interested in. The next one was my 100 subscriber special, episode 49, my first Q&A, which was the first of many failures, but hey, it was an interesting endeavor. And next one is Fireside Chats episode 58, the first Democratic debate breakdown. That was the first Democratic debate breakdown, and it was the beginning, I was kind of the real beginning of the 2020 presidential election, and yeah, I just thought it was pretty interesting. The next episode that I thought was interesting was episode 59, the 2020 speculation regarding the Green Party, because that was the first video where I kind of went full on into the endeavors of the Green Party presidential primary, and it's just, that was just a very interesting endeavor that at some point I gotta fucking make a video about the fucking shit show that was the 2020 Green Party presidential primary, because it's just so fucking bad. Dude, it's just so bad. It's just so fucking bad, dude. if I were to do another fucking like 4-hour documentary, it would be on that, because that situation was just so fucking terrible. The next episode that I thought was interesting was episode 63, My Thoughts on Nico House, because this was the first time that I really started getting into seeing the Tulsi Gabbard stands for what they truly were, because Nico House was just so transparently, obviously a fucking grifter, that it's just, yeah, not much else for me to say on that. The next episode that I thought was interesting was the Fireside Chats episode 65, the North Carolina special elections. This was the episode where I went over the 2 North Carolina special elections that were going on at the time, because there were 2 North Carolina special elections going on at the time. No one else knew about them but me, so I figured, why not use the time to talk about them? And the last podcast that I thought was interesting in 2019 was the episode 83, the 200 subscriber special. Not all the subscriber specials made it on the list, but again, early podcasts, not the best. So it was just a generic like political quiz video and a Q&A, but you know, it was the 200th milestone. That was pretty good. And yeah. But for main series videos, we have a lot more actually interesting contenders. First, we have the other major 2016 Democrats, because it covers the other major 2016 Democrats. I love the other series. I covered the campaigns of Jim Webb, Martin O'Malley, Lincoln Chafee, and Larry Lessig. Probably could have made videos dedicated to each of these campaigns individually. If I were to inevitably do one, I would do one on Larry Lessig, obviously. But, you know, no, that could be actually, that would actually be an interesting video topic. The presidential candidates, who was the worst major candidates in every single primary? I might jot that down. Hold on. I'm actually gonna jot that down right now, specifically so I don't forget it. The next video that I thought was interesting was my Mexican presidential election video for 1928. Now, that election itself was fine, and I thought it was an interesting election, obviously. But I really only like it for one joke in the episode, where after Obregón is assassinated, it's like, anyways, I'm pretty sure Obregón's presidency went well, and then immediately I cut to footage of the Childish Gambino song, This Is America, except I superimpose Obregón over the person that is shot in the video, and it's like, This Is America, instead it's like, This is Mexico. Surprised that it didn't get a copyright claim, but, you know, whatever. I'm grateful that the YouTube copyright gods have spared the rod this time. The next one that I thought was interesting was my video on the history of the Socialist Party of America. What's interesting is that video actually came out way earlier than it was supposed to. I was going to make that video come out a little later in the year, but due to the fact that I kind of fucked up and like thought that I could make an entire video on the history of the Black Panther Party in like a week, I just basically, you know, because of the foolish mistake I made about like party, so they must have ran candidates. So, foolish mistake I made, whoopsie doodle. So I made a video on the Socialist Party of America instead, because technically the party was to an extent a supporter of civil rights. Victor Berger must have not got the memo. So I'd say, yeah, generally I'd say this is a pretty good episode, and probably, yeah, a pretty good one is all I can say for it right now. The next video that I thought was pretty good for 2019 was the other minor 2016 Democrats. Similar to the major one, except it covers a lot of the smaller ones, which is kind of like what the initial version of the series is supposed to do. But I wanted to cover both of them in the same one, but I really figured there had to be like a distinction, because the difference between Martin O'Malley and Willie Wilson is pretty obvious. The next one that I thought was interesting was my 1934 Mexican presidential election series, and it's purely because this was kind of one of the videos that was kind of like, when I started doing the Mexican presidential election series videos, I was kind of told by people like, you're going to get to certain points in Mexican history that are going to be a lot more favorable to you, and you're going to be like it a lot more than others, you know, because they ask questions like, what do you think about Lazaro Cardenas, or what do you think of the Zapatistas, and like, you know, it's like, I haven't gotten to that part yet. I haven't gotten to that part of the book yet. And they're like, when you get there, you're going to find a lot of interesting things about it. It's like, yeah, I did. The next video that I thought was interesting was the history of Unity 08 and America's Elect. Now, technically, you could make 2 separate videos on these 2 organizations, but due to the closeness of these 2 organizations, having these 2 merge into one video actually does make some sense. And I would say seeing this video actually did work with these 2 merging together. And the next video that I thought was pretty good was my What is Progressivism video. Now, granted, it is still just a smaller, ideology video that wasn't intended to be that deep. I did like it for what it is, for the tiny, small video that it is. I would say it's pretty good. The next video that I made, that was pretty good, was the LGBT first in politics. Which is funny because this episode was actually an extremely late edition. There's an early joke in the video where it's Happy Pride Month, everyone. Yeah, I know Pride Month's almost over, but no one told me it was Pride Month. And it's that is true. I didn't know it was Pride Month until literally the week before that episode came out. I don't know how long ago before that episode came out, but I didn't know it was Pride Month until I was making that video. So I literally just haphazardly looked up the firsts in every single office for LGBTQ politicians, and sure enough, I found them and put them in that video. But even then, I think it was a pretty good one. And doing this reminds me, I need to go back to a lot of these old videos and put some cards in them so that people keep up to date with my most recent videos. But anyways, next video that I thought was interesting was my top 10 presidential elections video. Because while it is a video that is kind of weird, just going over the top 10 presidential elections that I thought were good, or at least thought were the best. But I mean, yeah, I still like that video. I can kind of see why it could also be classified as a worse one, but I mean, honestly, yeah, I like it. And I would say most of the slots probably are still the same. And the last main series video of 2019 that I thought was good was the history of the Socialist Party USA, which was intended to obviously be a direct sequel to my history of the Socialist Party of America. And yeah, with that, the best Fireside Chats of 2019 is without a doubt the Seth and M. Curry interview. I mean, honestly, I don't really think there's much competition, to be honest. And the best main series video of the year, quite similarly, also I don't think is that much of a contest, the Socialist Party of America video. Next we have 2020, and 2020 was kind of when the years started changing. I mean, this is when things started changing a little bit. First of all, I'll say this, I kind of think the quality of the main series videos didn't necessarily go down necessarily, but it was I started having some moments where I was kind of leaving a little bit more dead space, we're kind of leaving a little more blah blah blah, and then but this was at the same time where I was kind of upping up the podcast quality to kind of at the very least, I mean, unfortunately at that brief period of time I had to slightly quality of the main series video went down a little bit, but the quality of the Fireside Chats went up a bit, and then I was inevitably able to, in future years, move the quality of both of them upper and upper. But 2020 is probably the first year where I don't necessarily remember. I don't know if it would be this year or next year. That would be the one where I officially next year is the one where I would officially say I kind of really finally got into the groove. But 2020 was kind of a year where I was starting to get into that groove where I was okay, I'm starting to get it. After, it seems literally after the Mexican presidential election series wrapped up, that was when things are finally things are putting pedal to the metal. But you could still tell because this was still around a time where it was very easy to kind of pick favorites. This is the one where it kind of started getting slightly difficult, but not difficult enough. But let's just get into it. So we'll start with the main series videos this time again, because why not? And this is the one where I'm just going to have to say it. I'm going to have to go not in order for this one, just because you'll see why. Because this video, I mean, I kind of thought about giving each season of EPU, or every year subtitles, but I didn't because I couldn't think of a subtitle for certain years. But if this one had a subtitle, it would be something like Viva Mexico, because my main series videos that I thought were the best in 2020 were the Mexican presidential election videos of 1976, 1988, 1994, 2000, 2006, 2012, and 2018. Because each of those Mexican presidential election videos were when the elections started getting a lot more noticeably interesting. I will never not love the joke of my 1976 Mexican presidential election video, where literally on every version of the thumbnail, it looks like Jose Lopez Portillo is running alone, because I managed to, without even trying, forget his name at the moment, Valentin Campa so small he's hidden behind the time code. I'll never forget, that joke is so fucking funny, I love it. And the other ones are, of course, more about the elections themselves. Not even necessarily say 1976 isn't about the election itself, because, yeah, President Canada ran unopposed. Pretty interesting. The 3 videos that are not Mexican presidential election series related that I thought were good this year were my What Happened to the X Rating video, which was the first Politics and Media episode, because I wanted to cover the subject matter of what happened to the X rating. I just wanted to cover it. I didn't really give a shit that it wasn't really related to the topic of the channel. I just wanted to do it. It was a subject that I learned about, and I was just like, when am I ever going to get the opportunity to say this, so why not? My History of the Prohibition Party video, and my Spoiler Effect Debunked video. Both of those videos also I thought were pretty good. History of the Prohibition Party video was like one of my longest party history videos at the time. And the Spoiler Effect Debunked, I really think, even today, I think the arguments hold up. I could probably do well to try and at least revamp the video to kind of redo the arguments, because maybe I could reword some of the arguments and maybe I could explain them better than I did at the time. But honestly, I would say that that video's arguments are pretty good. Now onto the Fireside Chats episodes that I thought were good this year. There was episode 87, my interview with Hector Osegura. Wasn't the best interview, but again, he took time out of his day to go on to my little show, so yeah, that was pretty cool. The next one was Fireside Chats episode 94, my 2020 Bolivia election video, because that was the one that covered, all the drama that happened with Bolivia and, how it was going to possibly be fixed with Luis Arce. Oh, poor naive EPU. You thought things were going to get better? Boy, you were sorely mistaken. Next was episode 95, my Hands Off Mexico episode, where I went over all of the drama and relations that were regarding the possible invasion of Mexico that Donald Trump was going to do, or the possible coup that would happen with it, obviously being inspired by the Bolivian coup that just happened, and, probably still going to happen, so, yeah. And the next one is, surprisingly, episode 96, my first forte into what if the United States had a 10-party system. Now, that episode isn't the best, obviously, nowadays, but it was still a pretty fine video for what it was at the time. And the next one that I found interesting was episode 100, my political journey. The episode where I just went into my political journey online, or not even just online, just in general, how I went from I guess technically conservative Blue Dog Dem as a child to becoming a social democrat at the time. And if that video came out nowadays, I'd probably get a bit more interesting as time goes on. The next one is episode 105, the Systemic Racism episode. An episode where I delved into systemic racism. Yeah, that was interesting. Not much for me to say on that. That's a bit more of a deeper episode, I guess. The next episode that I thought was good was episode 115, my Free Leonard Peltier episode, where I discussed the case of Leonard Peltier, the indigenous activist that was wrongfully arrested for a crime he didn't commit, who thankfully is released now, so good on him. Next episode that I thought was good was episode 119, my thoughts on Jimmy Dore update. The only person that I had literally dedicated 2 entire thoughts on episodes to, because my opinion of them had changed so drastically that I just couldn't, in any semblance of the word, not talk about it. The next one that I thought was good was Fireside Chat's episode 122, my thoughts on Mr. Dapperton. And the only reason why I like this episode is because Mr. Dapperton saw it and appeared. I literally premiered this episode, and he was the only guy who showed up to the fucking premiere. And he was so fucking pissed the entire time. And he's like non-stop, like fucking like, not all the time, but like he keeps coming back whenever I like vaguely talk about him, because it's very clear that he just searches his own name on YouTube to just look for people to shit on. And it's just like, that's just fucking pathetic, dude. And then he somehow literally tries to turn it back on me like, you're a small channel making videos for like nobody to watch. And it's like, yeah, cool. And you're also literally, you were like a big boy on YouTube and you're responding to a fucking nobody channel and crying and pissing yourself. Dude, that's pathetic. You literally had to search your own fucking name to even like find out my video existed. It's like, that's sad. And the last episode that I did in that year, 2020, that I thought was good, was episode 130, all of my burned bridges thus far. Because I'm a YouTuber, and as a YouTuber, I have lore and, I guess, yeah, it just would be lore. Like, the EPU lore is all the other channels that are associated surrounding it that I've talked to, have burned bridges with, and I've whatever, and I've gotten into dramas with. And I just like sometimes going over like drama and all that stuff because it's fun. It's funny. I should probably do another one in the future because I do have more people I can do drama with or have done drama with. But what are the best videos, you may ask? Well, the best Fireside Chats of 2020 is, in my mind, episode 100, because 100th episode, and that goes through all the political journey that I had done thus far. And it was like a pretty good one. I thought it was a pretty interesting one. Other ones were pretty good, but, that one was edged out the rest. Meanwhile, in 2020, while again, the videos were generally fine. No contest, really. Prohibition Party video. Now let's move on to 2021. This was the year that things actually, this is when quality started picking up on this channel. This is when things started getting good. This is when things... Chef's kiss. This is when things started getting good. I think this was actually the first time in a while that I really, yeah. I think 2021 was the first time that I was able to, get past... Because, previous years, I had, trouble with the schedule. And this was, the first year I think I actually managed to, keep a consistent schedule. And that was good. Now, with that, let's talk about the videos. Now, let's start with the podcast. We'll start with the podcast again. Well, I don't know if again, but we'll just start with the podcast. The first one that I thought was good this year was episode 139. The People's Party is the New Union Party. This one was good because this was actually an actual relevant thing in discussing history rather than getting into petty drama. This was me going over the actual literal direct comparisons between the Union Party of Charles Coughlin and the People's Party that was going on at the time. And I think, for all intents and purposes, I was 100% vindicated. The next episode that I thought was good was episode 144, my thoughts on Glenn Greenwald, because Glenn Greenwald was for some reason going on this really strangely transphobic thing, and I don't really understand why. And it was going on this weird thing where it's oh yeah, the elite are just generally super pro-trans. It's since when? Since fucking when? And I also like it just because there's one fucking hilarious joke where he's literally is just oh, everybody's pressuring children to be trans. That's not true. And then it's literally not and I literally made the funny joke where it's not a doctor goes up to a person and says sir, identify as a woman. It's well, time for pee bye bye. I mean, because when I rant and I get into anger and it's just that just came off the cuff and it's just yeah, that was fucking funny. I can't recreate it now because you have to reach it in the moment. I'll probably have to like link like the best ones of each year or whatever just to get it. But like, yeah, pretty good episode. The next episode that I thought was good was episode 149, Who Are the Socialist Equality Party? Because this one was a very actually important PSA. It was me going over who is this Socialist Equality Party that many people would fall for the trap of joining or even remotely advocating for without knowing the fact that the party is like an actual cult that is ruining and like basically left bashing. They're just, yeah, pretty good. The next video that I thought was good, the next podcast, was episode 158, the 2021 Nicaraguan presidential election. Similarly, it was more for me giving like an explanation about how Nicaragua, despite the fact that it claims to be like a socialist nation and like, advocating for like the socialist experiment, is unfortunately not living up to the expectations of a socialist state, or even remotely like anything remotely left of center. All right, next podcast episode that I thought was good was episode 160, the Julian Assange episode, where I talked about Julian Assange and sort of the good and bad of him, what he's done, what he has done, what he will continue to do, the sexual assault drama, that kind of stuff. I kind of went over all of it because there was just a lot to say. And yeah, I still think that episode is pretty good. The next podcast I thought was good was episode 165, My Thoughts on Michael Brooks. And it's kind of really a lot more to do with the story of how that episode came to be than anything else. If you don't remember the story, I'll explain it again. I was, like, at the time I had my thoughts on, I had a wheel of a ton of different pundits that I would possibly do thoughts on episodes on. And if I was kind of unsure what one I wanted to do, I would spin the wheel and it would land on them. And if I liked them, I would do the episode. Or, if I liked the idea of doing an episode on them, I would do an episode on them. And if I didn't, I might spin it again. But what ended up happening is I spun the wheel and it landed on Michael Brooks. And when it landed on Michael Brooks, my brain was like, something's weird. I have a weird vibe. So then I went to Google, typed in Michael Brooks' name, and it just so happened that I did that the day Michael Brooks passed away. Not the exact day, but it was like the anniversary of the day Michael Brooks passed away. And it's just like, oh, I don't think I could do another episode. I don't think I could do any other episode after this. So, yeah, I ended up doing the episode on Michael Brooks. And, yeah, I just thought it was a pretty good one. The next Fireside chat that I thought was good was episode 171, my 600 subscriber special, which was my reaction to the first video I had ever produced on this channel. And yeah, it's just nice to go down memory lane and see how things have changed and evolved on the channel. And I generally say pretty good. Next podcast that I thought was pretty good was episode 172, the 2021 Chilean presidential election. It was a presidential election that I was looking forward to in that time period, and it gave me hope for the future. Sure, that hope didn't last, but hey, hope is all we need. The next podcast episode that I thought was good was episode 183, the Anti-Semitism on the Left episode. I like that because, yeah, while you could obviously say, anti-Semitism on the left is not that big of an issue, it's like, yeah, it isn't, but but you can't pretend that it's not an issue at all. And even at the time, when I didn't know a lot about the Israel-Palestine conflict, I knew a bit, but I didn't know, like, enough. Even then, I would still say, yeah, we gotta just keep an eye on it. I wouldn't, even at the video, I didn't say it was, like, a big issue, but it was, like, enough that it's just, like, let's just quash the issue while we're here. Let's just get rid of that while let's just mention it, get rid of it quickly before it has the time to spread. it's basically the equivalent of discovering a tumor when you are very early on your age. And it's basically the equivalent of like finding a cancer when it's pre-cancer. Like, you could just get rid of it easily and not have to worry about any of the problems down the line, or you're gonna get the tumor and it's gonna grow massive, and then you're gonna be like Ben Sass. And the next episode that I thought was good, the last one of 2021, is episode 185. Thoughts on, going over all of the people that I had done thoughts on episodes on at that particular moment, and just basically giving an update so anybody who would, stumble across it might see where I stand on certain issues and people now. Probably should do another one. I should probably actually link it, but, regardless, I thought it was a pretty good episode. And now let's move on to the main series episodes of 2021. First was the Falcon and the Winter Soldier Politics and Media episode. Now, funny thing is that this episode was actually also kind of scheduled rather late in the game. I literally was like, oh wait, this show will end, and then a week afterwards, I'll have a slot to fill. And so I was like, hey, would you guys want me to do an episode on it? And then I think that some of you guys are like, oh yeah, actually that would be a pretty good idea for doing an episode on it. And it's like, okay, I'll do an episode on it. And yeah, I think it turned out great. Well, let's see what you want me to say. The next episode that I thought was good was the Top 10 Best Governors episode. Mostly because I had an excuse to talk about Floyd B. Olson, who, even at the time, I was actually thinking of putting Huey Long at number one, just, whatever. But then I was like, after doing more research on Floyd Olson, I'm like, oh shit, this guy's way better. Fuck Huey Long. Floyd Olson's pretty cool. And honestly, yeah, Floyd Olson should probably get a video all on his own, because Floyd Olson's fucking cool. Too bad stomach cancer killed him. Next episode that I thought was pretty good was my History of the Socialist Labor Party video. Again, at the time, longest party history video about the oldest the oldest socialist party in American history. Yeah, it was pretty good. I liked it. I got some slight help from Sunflower Socialists, and yeah, it was pretty good. I thought it was good. I liked it. The next video that I thought was good was the Politics and Media on the leader, the Karl Marx Dong Hua, or as the clickbait title suggests, the Karl Marx anime. Come on, guys. Just come on. The name. The anime made by the Chinese government to spread communism. Come on, that's pretty fucking funny. That's a pretty good episode, not gonna lie. And actually looking at it beyond just simply going, Karl Marx anime, that's funny, and actually watching it and actually, giving it a proper analysis, I actually would hold myself to a higher standard than the rest of these guys who just looked at it, funny Karl Marx anime, and then just move on. The next episode that I thought was good was Who is Hiram Johnson? Honestly, yeah, Hiram Johnson was a pretty interesting figure at the time, and sure enough, wanted to give him some analysis of how his life was pretty good. I'll give it a solid 10 out of, no, not 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10. I wouldn't say 10 out of 10, but was it an S rank or a rank? One of the two, I forget which one. Next episode that I thought was interesting was the 2010 South Carolina Senate race. This was one of those videos where I kind of do I look over a weird election and just talk about that. Won't be the first, won't be the last. It's a pretty good one, and yeah, I picked an interesting one to do. The next series video that I did that was pretty good was the 1941 Disney strike. One of the most prevalent animation strikes and one of the most prevalent union strikes in all the entertainment industry. Couldn't have picked a better one to start with. And I'd love to do more. I just haven't had time to fit them in the video schedule. Maybe I should have saved this one for later, because this is really the biggest one that I could have used. And next video that I thought was good was Who is Roque de la Fuente? Just the fucking funny history of Roque de la Fuente's life. It's pretty good. Kind of really lucked out picking this guy to be in this slot. The next video was my video going over the films of Quirino Cristani. And yeah, similarly, this was like my first forte, I think, into, not necessarily my first forte into political lost media, but this was one where I kind of like tapped into my, like, one of my other hyperfixations, which is, of course, lost media. And sure enough, this was a pretty good one to start off with, because the Cristani films are just generally, they're not really talked about a lot, but I would say they are generally just really good. Or at the very least, a fascinating story, because again, I can't really tell if they're good because I haven't seen the movies, so, whatever. And the last main series video that I thought was good in 2021 was my video on what is the pink tide, because I go over what is the pink tide, and it's not the best pink tide video I've made, but it was a pretty good one just to get like the generic idea of like what is the pink tide, because that was a hyperfixation that was very clearly starting. Well, not necessarily starting, but like clearly turning into something bigger. And the best videos of the year would have to go to Best Fireside Chat, being the 2021 Chilean election. Again, the hype surrounding the Chilean election at the time was pretty big, so I would say can't really go wrong with that. And the main series ones, similarly, no contest. Socialist Labor Party video. Typically, the longer videos are the ones that usually get the most love at the end of the day, because I spend the most of the time doing them, so yeah. Next, we have 2022. Let's go over the main series videos. The first one that I thought was pretty good was the Wilmington insurrection video. This was the video that I honestly thought was a very... I honestly just really wanted to cover... the reason why I did that video was really because not earlier that year, but like late last year, early 2022, I forget how long it was. This video had to come out in like February, so it was like had to be late in 2021, when I was just like, wait, what? I literally just learned about like the fucking like coup that happened in fucking Wilmington, North Carolina. It's just like, what? But what? A coup happened in fucking North Carolina and nobody talks about it? So I figured, let's not let this story go unheard. So let's talk about it. And yeah, it's a very interesting video. The next video that I thought was pretty good was my review of the American Dream film. This video just kind of really was just like again, this was weird. I don't know if it was this one was kind of more of like a memory thing where it's like I just suddenly randomly remember like, oh yeah, remember that fucking movie that was made in like 2012 about like the fucking Federal Reserve? What the fuck happened to that video? And I looked it up, I was like, oh shit, it's there. And I watched it, it's like, oh shit, this is fucking stupid. This is terrible. I should make a video about this. That was fucking funny. I love that one. Like, I genuinely think that I fucking, like, didn't watch I think I was scared to watch it when it first came out, because it's just, like, I remember, I'm literally, I say it in the video, it's like, I remember coming back, like, this, like, video was like, oh, watch the truth that they don't want you to know. But, yeah, there's not much else for me to say on that. Next video that I thought was pretty good was my video talking about the 1934 California gubernatorial election, which was, of course, the election with Upton Sinclair. And aside from I like it all the way down to the fucking, like, meme format that I use in the fucking video title, like the video thumbnail, where it's like, lay epic governor, lay epic fence sitter, lay epic whatever. Just fucking funny. I love that one. I love it. And just the actual election itself was a fascinating one. It's just a really good one. I like it. Next video that I thought was interesting was my video on the Star Wars prequel trilogy, because of all the politics in the Star Wars prequel trilogy. Can't really go wrong with that. I love Star Wars, and I covered the Star Wars original trilogy, but the prequel trilogy was just obviously way more political, so there's a lot more to say. And sure enough, I liked it. Next video that was really good was the Who is Jeanette Rankin? My video talking about Jeanette Rankin. Her story is very fascinating. Figured, why not give her a shout out? Not much for me to say. Next video is who is William Jennings Bryan? Because honestly, for some reason, William Jennings Bryan is not talked about a lot in like modern, like not even necessarily modern U.S. politics, but like he doesn't talk about a lot on online discourse, even though populism is like really popular online. I'd figured that he'd get mentioned a lot, but apparently not. And I don't know why. So I figured, hey, why not give him a shout? Why not talk about him a little bit more? The next video that I thought was pretty good was, this is the thing. This one was actually the first year where it was kind of hard to pick some videos, but I ultimately chose this one because this video was actually surprisingly not popular. But I personally like this episode, and it's my politics and media episode on G.I. Joe Renegades. Even though it's not that well put together. It's not necessarily, it's standard like low, it's kind of like a video. It's kind of, again, just me giving like a little bit of a review of the G.I. Joe series, G.I. Joe Renegades. But I just really like it. I like G.I. Joe Renegades. It was a pretty good show. And I also just like how it was so overtly political and it was canceled way too soon. It's just so interesting. And I just wanted to give like my shout outs to that series. It's a pretty good one. The next main series video that I thought was pretty good was my History of the Communist Party USA video. It's a pretty good video. I would say pretty good video. And not much else for me to say on that except for the obvious answer to a question. But the next video that I thought was good was my video where I say that aliens were a CIA cover-up. And yeah, just goes over a little bit of the theory and the history of fucking, aliens coincidentally being tied around the same time that there's like CIA cover-ups going on in the media industry, and just raises some questions, pretty interesting developments. And the last main series video of 2022 that I thought was good. Not necessarily that was good, because again, this was the first year, I think. This year, 2021, was like kind of the first year where it was like, okay, it was actually getting difficult to choose some episodes. But the last one that I think kind of goes above the rest was my video going over the party switch. Because not only did I go through the party switch in the way that we know about it today, but I also added some elements to it that I don't think are talked about a lot. Just added some stuff to kind of like expand the analysis of it a little bit more. Alright, now let's move on to the Fireside Chats. What are the top 10 best Fireside Chats of this year? Again, I think this is the first year where the podcast also started getting like really good as well. So, what are the episodes that did the best? First was Fireside Chats episode 195, My YouTube Career Before E Pluribus Unum. A very important lore piece that I need to add on before a certain event would happen. Simply put, I just like talking about the previous endeavors. Finally these characters are given some life, but maybe it's a little too late for that. Next episode that I thought was good was Fireside Chats episode 200. All of the EPU dramas. Those are literally all the dramas that had happened on the E Pluribus Unum channel or related to the E Pluribus Unum channel had happened up to that point. And again, I just like going over it. I'm a YouTuber. I accept that I am a YouTuber, not really like a big thought leader, but I'm a YouTuber and there's going to be dramas. And sure enough, I covered them all at the time. I could redo them because, a couple more dramas happened, but, whatever. The next episode that I thought was good was episode 201, the 2022 French presidential election. I had done a little research and it was a pretty good episode. I kind of went a lot more in depth on the French presidential election and presidential series, and it was a pretty good episode. The next episode that I thought was good was episode 203, My Problems with Brand New Congress. I think this is the first episode of my inaugural series, My Problems With, and I picked a pretty good organization to start with. An organization that I could be literally, and it even got to the point where this organization doesn't even exist anymore. Do I take credit for that? Yes. Next one, my problems with the Green Party, episode 213, which was a video where I went over my problems with the Green Party. I generally was like, pretty good. I like that. I went over my problems with the Green Party. It was kind of like the true beginning of my descent away from, like, I guess, third-party politics. But sure enough, thought it was interesting. And yeah, validity of the problem still stands. Next one that I thought was good was E Pluribus Unum Fireside Chats episode 219. Who is Emiliano Zapata? A precursor to when I will inevitably have to do an episode about who is Emiliano Zapata proper. But for a podcast, it's a pretty good episode. And I think it was pretty good. The next Fireside Chats that I thought was good was the episode about the 2022 Brazilian presidential election, Fireside Chats episode 226, because that was the one that I was building up for basically the entirety of the year, and sure enough, there was a lot to say when that episode came out. And I'll admit, pretty good one. I like it. Next one that I thought was pretty good was E Pluribus Unum Fireside Chats episode 230, the copyright episode. But this was the first episode where I kind of delved into my stances on the copyright issue. And this was even before I had become fully radicalized in the copyright issue. So, I thought it was pretty good. The next episode was episode 236, my thoughts on David Pakman. And basically, I really didn't like David Pakman, and I went really hard into why I didn't like David Pakman. And a lot of the arguments would hold up even today. Pretty good. Pretty good job, EPU. I managed to get on the David Pakman hate before anyone else did. I don't think anybody. I think there were other people who hated him before I did, but like, you get my point. No, you don't. Next one is EPU Fireside Chats episode 238. My E Pluribus Unum iceberg. It was pretty much a standard iceberg video. I wish I kept the file for the iceberg, but I think I should post it. I think I should have posted it somewhere. If I didn't, I'm just fucking stupid. But it was just a pretty good iceberg video. A couple of things about the iceberg. It was just kind of like a standard iceberg video. I just kind of was like, hey, let's make one about me. And then, what is the best EPU like Fireside Chats of the year? It'd be the Brazilian election, no question. And, shock of all shocks, in the main series videos, best video was the History of the Communist Party video. Oh my goodness, who would have thought? And now let's move on to 2023, the 5-year anniversary of the channel, and the big epic storyline of fucking silhouettes of the past. Now, if I wanted to, I could have put all the videos on here, because I honestly, or at least all the ones that like directly related to the storyline. But, I mean, wouldn't say everything about the storyline really hit, but I would say enough of it hit that, I mean, this was ambitious. I literally started writing the idea of this series, of this storyline, like halfway through 2024. So I was just like, I knew that I had to do this right, if I was going to do it right. But let's just get into it. Here are the episodes that I thought like went above the rest. Okay, first, how many socialists were elected to Congress Part 2? This expanded on the original video's concept and did it a lot better. So yeah, this one clearly goes up the ranks. And this is actually the one that is like the furthest away from the story arc. And that's why it's pretty good to me. That's interesting about it. It's like it like spirals above all the way beyond the story arc. The next one that was, also kind of not related to the story arc was the what if the US had a 10-party system? And it's the redux of the podcast episode that I did, but I did it way better in the actual main series video. Even if I basically just stole the J.J. McCullough style in order to do it to make fun of him. The next video that I thought was good was the Squirrel and Hedgehog Politics and Media. I just literally the concept of the squirrel and hedgehog was just so fucking stupid and so strange. Why not make a video about it? And also funny considering the fucking show is actually really fucking good. And it's like, just funny. Like, I mean, you can tell that like the story arc segments and the video segments were actually written basically separately. Like literally, it's just like, it didn't really matter what videos were attached to what storyline segments, really. Next was the What the Heck is a Liberal video. This was when I finally like was able to like turn the party, like not the part, like the political ideology videos into something a bit more. Because, you know, originally it was like just generic, like read off wiki page about like the ideology, some of the main tenets and like that kind of stuff. But due to the liberalism, like evolution of the word liberal and how what goes in a political context, I was able to go a bit more beyond just like the traditional like, oh, liberalism is blah, 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 blah. Which is clearly what the ideology videos have now evolved into because, you know, now I don't really cover one ideology, I now cover like a lot of them in one video. Next one that I thought was good was my top 10 third-party performances post-1900 Reduxed, where I literally re-edited and re-recorded and redid my first video all over again in the most modern style at the time. And yeah, it's a good way to show how I have evolved in the type of content that I produce. I generally think that this is just a pretty interesting like development, a pretty interesting show. The next video that I liked was The Plot Against America, because that show was so fucking good, and it did its job so well that I really could, that literally just like, there was a lot to say. Quite genuinely, it's pretty fucking good. I liked it. Next video, my Who is Peter Diamondstone video. The guy Bernie Sanders would have been if he had never changed. Now you could say that's a good thing or a bad thing, but Peter Diamondstone, the story of him is so fucking weird. The closest, it could slightly dock points just because of the fucking AI voice that I used in the video, because that was before AI was really like seen as like a very bad thing. But otherwise, I think it's a pretty good episode. Next video that was pretty good was the Bad Optics video. Now, this one basically has nothing to do with the actual game Bad Optics itself. It has everything to do with the story arc segment that I made for that. The Nintendo fight, like that, all that animation stuff. That was literally like one of the first things I did for the story arc, because I knew that I had to get this one really well. I had to do it right. I had to make sure that I knew this one was going to be the most, I guess, work of all the ones I did. So this was the one I really needed to do almost basically from the get-go. And the next episode that I thought was pretty good was the Why Spider-Man is a Socialist episode. And the reason why is because I actually like the way that episode went. Like, I really do think that the argument that I make works. Like, I mean, whether you agree with that argument is up to your own interpretation, but I think that argument actually does have more legs to stand on than people give it credit for. And the last main series video for 2023 that I thought was good was the top 10 E Pluribus Unum screw-ups of 2023, the finale of the Silhouettes of the Past story arc. Quite honestly, what else can I say about it except that episode is out of date because that episode came out when I was like 50 pounds heavier, so maybe I should do another face reveal at some point in the future, because I maybe if I ever get into drama and someone calls me and someone insults me, I could literally just be like, yo bro, I lost 50 pounds. Here's literally me wearing the shirt of the fucking like that I wore all those years ago, and I'm fucking like tiny. Like I'm not wearing that exact shirt right now, but I'm wearing a shirt that's the same size as that shirt, and yeah, is it the same size? I actually just checked, and this shirt doesn't have a size in it. So I don't know if it's the same size or if it's a size slightly smaller than that. But either way, I am literally like 3 sizes smaller than that now. Be healthy, kids. Make sure you eat your veggies or whatever. Just don't eat fatty foods and you'll be fine. Or do something. Do exercise. Something. Anyways, now let's move on to the Fireside Chats episodes that I thought were pretty good for 2023. Okay, first, we have episode 243, My Problems with the Congressional Progressive Caucus. The Progressive Caucus is an interesting group, and I'd say that group should get a lot more attention, for good and bad. It's the only caucus in the United States House that's actually somewhat good, so it's good to, at the very least, give them some criticisms so they continue to be good. Next one is episode 245, the 2023 Nigerian presidential election. Simply put, I wanted to cover an African presidential election series. I wanted to cover an African presidential election. Nigeria was a pretty good one, and I thought that the episode was pretty good. Next episode was episode 247, Why I Hate LeftTube. It was basically me finally boiling over on why I was just like, this LeftTube is just so fucking like, why? Why? There's so much wrong with LeftTube, and I just want to get all of it out there so I can officially just stop with all the drama. And have I succeeded or have I failed? I'd say a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. Next one is episode 251, My Problems with Rose Caucus. This episode was interesting because Rose Caucus was like the first truly like 100% online activist grassroots group of like the online left-wing sphere to an extent. And it has a lot of drama in it, and I really loved it. And I also like the fact that I actually got into contact with one of the people who was actually like a figurehead within Rose Caucus to actually get like the frontline story of what happened. The next episode that I thought was good, episode 262, the 2023 Guatemalan presidential election, because it was similar to the Brazil one in the sense that I was kind of really focusing a lot on this election, and honestly thought that one was going to lead to a lot more things than happened, but then it also would lead to things happening regardless. So yeah, it was a lot of interesting developments in Guatemala. Next episode that I thought was pretty good was episode 266, Left and Right Are Not Outdated. It was my analysis of the fact that the terms right and left are not outdated terms, and people really need to stop pretending that they are, because those two terms are literally almost exactly what we need to describe our political scene. It's just genuinely interesting that people still want to claim that there's some sort of like, no, it's not relevant anymore. It's like, it is. But next one, episode 276, the one about the 2023 Argentinian presidential election. The incoming election of Javier Milei was a very interesting development. I was just fucking interested to see how things planned out. The next good podcast is episode 282, My Thoughts on the Vanguard. Because I fucking hate the Vanguard. I really just wanted to make myself known about how much I hated the fucking Vanguard. And yeah, that's pretty much all I gotta say on that. Next one is episode 284, the Palestine-Israel conflict. The episode where I went over all the stuff that I had known up to that point about the Palestine-Israel conflict, and basically my endeavors to try and explain that to my audience so they would know how the Israel-Palestine conflict is and how it actually is. And last one was episode 291, What the Heck Was That? Which was basically just me going over my thought process behind doing the Silhouette of the Past story arc and trying to explain a little bit of the lore that went on. Now, Fireside Chats, the episode that did the best to me was the 2023 Guatemalan presidential election video, and the best main series video for 2023 to me is no contest, the top 10 E Pluribus Unum groups of 2023. 2024 was, of course, the year where things are interesting. That was when we had that whole presidential election, and that's when we also had that whole, like, me wasting like a million years doing that 4-hour video segment that no one watched. But hey, whatever. Now, what are the best podcast episodes of that year? Let's just get into it. First, we have episode 296, the 2024 El Salvador election. Honestly, pointing out the fact that Nayib Bukele was illegally running for a second term and was literally modeling Adolf Hitler. Pretty interesting one. Next, we have 301, Am I Neurodivergent? The video where I very much do not really consult any medical professionals and determine whether or not I could possibly be on the spectrum. Am I or am I not? I guess it's up for you all to decide, America. The next one is episode 310, Is Wikipedia a Good Source? The episode where I give my 2 cents on defending Wikipedia as a good source. The next one is episode 313, my episode regarding the 2024 Mexican presidential election. That podcast, which would then lead into the obvious and eventual main series video on that very same subject. I genuinely really liked I liked it because obviously it's the forward election that I would probably know the most about, so yeah, not much else for me to add to that. The next one is episode 314, Bisexual Erasure, covering the very important issue of bisexual erasure, whether it be in media or history or in general. Bisexuals exist, ain't going away no time soon, anybody. Next one that I thought was good was episode 316, Why Trans Rights Are Non-Negotiable, my video where I defend all my trans subscribers and all my trans non-subscribers, all the trans people in the world. I defended them in this one episode, going over most, if not all, the elements that are just like, there is literally no way I can see any remote actual explanation for opposing trans rights. It's just insane to me that you would in the modern day. Next is episode 319, The Squad is Good and Stop Complaining, where I defend the Squad because the Squad is worth defending, because the Squad is good and you all should stop complaining. And the next episode is episode 327, Let's Talk About the Star Wars Fandom, where I give a lot of my 2 cents in regards to the Star Wars fandom, particularly the strange radical right involvement in the Star Wars fandom. Next episode that I thought was pretty good was Fireside Chat's episode 332, I Hate Jill Stein Now, where I finally debunk all of the lies that I had accidentally fed a lot of you in regards to my third-party phase, such as that whole, if the Green Party only gets to 15%, then magically they're going to get this much money or whatever. And the last podcast of 2024 that I thought was good was episode 337, Liberalism is Dead, where I go over why the ideology of liberalism is just flat out dead and cannot be revived. And now let's move on to the main series videos that I thought were good. First one is Who is Shirley Chisholm? Where I go over who is Shirley Chisholm. And, this one is interesting because because a lot of people put Shirley Chisholm on a pedestal due to the fact that she's the first black female representative. And yeah, she has a lot to do and she has a lot to say. There's a lot of things to admire her for. But I also use that episode to kind of go over the fact that she also did kind of become at least somewhat of a normie Democrat over the course of her career. And yeah, maybe just take a little bit of it, not necessarily saying, again, an admiration of her is not necessarily bad, but I'm just saying, just pay a little extra attention to her. The next one that I thought was pretty good was Why Do African Americans Lean Left? The one where I go over why African Americans lean to the left. And sure enough, I think my arguments still stand. Left stands with African Americans, right? Does not. So, no, just for me to say there. And next one is my Politics and Media episode on Dr. Seuss. Not just because I think that the video itself was fine in regards to like the subject matter, but I also liked the rhyming scheme that I did for the episode. It was somewhat difficult at first, but overall, it's not that hard once you actually just look a little bit deeper. The next one is my Mexican political parties explained video, the one that Hassan Freibu did. Simply put, it was a pretty good time to do a refresher on Mexican political parties, and sure enough, I was rewarded for my endeavors in regards to that issue. Next one is by the Bill Nye Trans episode 7 years later. The episode where I go over Bill Nye being a trans ally and using science to debunk all the lies in regards to gender that a lot of the people on the right do. And pointing out the fact that really it's just... honestly, there's just not much for me to say because it's just like the science is on Bill's side and the anti-SJWs were like clearly blowing their load over nothing. Next video that I thought was good was World War I was a mistake. Sure enough, yeah, it was. I'll stand by the 100%. World War I was a mistake, and we should not have gotten involved in World War I. I'll defend that till the day I die. And next is my video on who is Ernest Lundeen, because the Lundeen story is just so fucking fascinating. Ernest Lundeen, a senator of the United States, literally was on the payroll of the Nazi government and was disseminating Nazi propaganda from within. Come on, that story is just so fucking interesting. And next video is piracy, good or bad. The episode where I purely lay out a thought experiment and I do not advocate for any position whatsoever in regards to that issue. But yeah, this episode was a pretty interesting one and I really don't think I can say much about it. The next one is an episode that I wrote when I was in a very dark mindset. Very depressed about the future of the world, and sure enough, I ended up doing some research on a not-so-savory figure. A figure that I found very fascinating, even if for just a morbid curiosity. Who is Leon Czolgosz? It was just so interesting learning about Czolgosz. He was such a fascinating figure, and so far removed from any of the other people that I had done a thoughts on episode on previously. Mostly I had done politicians who I could go over a political career, but Czolgosz is of course not a politician by any stretch of the word, but he had a very important mindset in regards to politics, and sure enough, he put his praxis into action. Of course, not condoning any of the things that he did, but just, he's a fascinating figure. There's a reason why people get attracted to a lot of these unsavory figures, because there's usually a fascinating story behind it. And Leon Czolgosz has a fascinating story that you gotta look into, because if you want to understand why that situation happened, you have to understand why Leon did what he did. And maybe if we address the problems that made Leon did what he did, maybe other people won't be inclined to do any of the similar things in the future. And the last video that I thought was pretty good was the video that I originally intended to be one of the first episodes of Politics and Media, but got saved until that year due to the fact that it just wasn't ready because I hadn't read the book about it. V for Vendetta. And yeah, I just like it. I like V for Vendetta. It was a pretty good movie. It was a pretty good comic book. It was a pretty good video. Now, what are the good videos of that year? It was the Let's Talk About the Star Wars fandom episode for the Fireside Chats, and no contest whatsoever for both of them, but also no contest for the main series videos, especially Mexican political parties. That was just obvious. Come on. That was gonna happen. Come on. And now we have finally reached the 2025 video rankings. Like, these episodes are the ones that are obviously the most close to my mind, so they might be like a little bit biased for me to look back on, especially recently, but let's just get into it. The first video that I released this year literally was the 2024 Mexican presidential election video, and that one almost immediately, I liked it. And I liked it for a reason, because it was very obviously one I was building up to for a while. So yeah, obviously that one became an instant favorite. The next main series video that I thought was pretty good was my Copyright is Worthless episode, where I finally officially came out to say that the copyright system in and of itself is just a stupid endeavor and we need to move past it. The next video that I did that what I thought was pretty good was my How Trump Used Third Parties to Win, because I honestly just like the fact that I just had this idea in my mind and no one else thought about this. And I gave the analysis that I thought was good enough that, I mean, even some people who were like shitting on me before be like, oh, you're trying to shit on Jill Stein. And then after I watched it, I was like, oh, no, you actually have these good points here. And it's like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was more an excuse just for me to talk about the fact that, yeah, Donald Trump took over the Libertarian Party and nobody seems to notice that. Next video that I did that I thought was pretty good was my ranking of the Pink Tide leaders. Pretty long video. I honestly thought it was really good. And yeah, not much else for me to say on that. The next video that I thought that was pretty good was my Magneto is a bad guy episode. Because not only was I able to explain, Magneto is an obvious bad guy, but I was also able to use the fact that since Magneto was literally based on, Menachem Begin, I could also talk about the Israel-Palestine issue. And yeah, I don't really get a lot of excuses to talk about Israel-Palestine in my main series videos, but I finally was able to get an excuse to talk about it with Magneto. Next episode that I thought was pretty good was my Is the People's Joker Fair Use episode, because I'm able to explain, I actually know a bit more about fair use and like copyright than most other people, so I can actually talk about it in a way that actually explains it. The next video that I thought was pretty good was my 2025 edition on what is my political ideology, because yeah, with all the editing and stuff and all the explanation, I was able to give an actual good explanation about what my political ideology is. Pretty good. And my next episode that I thought was good was Andor is left-wing, so is Star Wars. The video that I had made, that was really basically like my fullest excuse to, like, the reason why I watched Andor in the first place, and sure enough, my best Star Wars video to date. And next episode that I thought was pretty good was How Copyright Infringement Gave Us the Horror Genre. One where I was able to explain how literal blatant copyright infringement via Nosferatu was what led to the horror genre that we know and love today. So think about that whenever people cry about copyright infringement. And last but certainly not least, we have my history of the Party of the Democratic Revolution. The first foreign election, the first foreign party to get a party history video, and one that I really like. I like this one a lot. And now let's move on to the fireside chats that have happened this year. Now, first, we have my episode 347, Thoughts on J.J. McCullough, the return of the Thoughts on series, and a worthy opponent to bring it on, because I fucking hate J.J. McCullough with almost every fiber of my being, and I will make sure everyone understands why I think he's a POS. And next episode is episode 352, the copyleft episode, the sister episode to the copyright episode, but explaining more about the copyleft issue itself. Next podcast is episode 355, my thoughts on H3H3. Simply put, I don't like Ethan Klein. I used to be a fan of his, not anymore. But I really do hate him with every fiber of my being at this point, because Ethan Klein has ruined any goodwill that he could possibly have over the course of his lifetime. And it's just insane to me that he is choosing to waste whatever little time he has left with his family on basically shitting on Hassan Piker. Next episode is episode 362. Andor is the best Star Wars show. The podcast that I made to tide you over until I eventually made my Andor main series video. Next episode that I thought was pretty good was episode 368. Zionists are breeding new anti-Semitism. An episode where I was able to explain how Zionists are literally creating new anti-Semitism by doing actions that will literally only do things that make people more anti-Semitic. Like, if they weren't anti-Semitic, they might be more inclined to be anti-Semitic after you're doing, like, the things that literally... It's just insane to me that it's just like, I don't fucking get it. Next episode that I thought was pretty good was episode 369, the 2025 Bolivian presidential election. Because that is one that has also been building for a long period of time. Made a couple of episodes about like the Bolivian drama prior, and sure enough, this was just the culmination of all that. Next episode that I thought was pretty good was episode 378. I react to a fascist brony. One where I react to Alex the Critic and all of his BS in regards to the Charlie Kirk shooting. It's just fucking funny. I just like that. The next episode that I thought was pretty good was episode 382. Let's talk about nihilism. One where I actually go over the philosophical school of nihilism and actually do a little bit of learning in regards to it. I think it's pretty good. I like it when I'm able to actually like do something a bit deeper with the podcast than just kind of like, generic like react to whatever fucking like online drama is happening at the time. Might be actually somewhat interesting. Next episode is the episode 387, the 2025 Honduran presidential election. I think it's because of the ensuing drama that has happened and the fact that I was vindicated in stating in that episode that it was probably going to be rigged that makes this episode more important. And lastly, the last podcast of this year that I thought was very interesting was literally the last podcast that I made, episode 391, Is Jesus Christ Even Real? Because that episode, I literally learned so much just researching that episode alone that I just really like it. And for 2025, my favorite podcast episode would be the Copyleft episode, and my favorite video of 2025, it was actually a pretty decent contest. There were a couple of choices that I thought were pretty close. My Andor video was a pretty close contender. Magneto was a bad guy was a pretty good contender. My Pink Tide video was a pretty good contender. And the 2024 Mexican presidential election video was a pretty good contender. But I'd say overall, in the 2025, my favorite episode would be the Copyright is Worthless episode. Because I just want to spread more awareness about the copyright issue. And I just gotta say one other thing when I get into the actual like final rankings of like this sits again. It's pretty. It's like these ones are way more on my mind, but I just gotta be real. Sometimes newer episodes are gonna be overrepresented. So here we go. Let's look at the top 10 best EPU podcasts, fireside chats in all 7 years of this channel. Alright, first on number 10 we have episode 200, all the E Pluribus Unum dramas. Frankly, I just think it's just, again, I like the lore and I like the idea of all these other people in the drama sphere have basically made who I am. And I like it. I like it. I like doing that. Next, number 9, episode 301, Am I Neurodivergent? Again, kind of learning a bit more about myself through that one was a bit interesting. And I think it'd be interesting, maybe one day to officially get an answer to the question. Number 8, we have episode 378, I react to a fascist brony. Come on, guys. It's just fucking funny. I just fucking love that. I just fucking love the title alone and what the video actually entails is pretty fucking funny. Number 7, episode 391, Is Jesus Christ Even Real? Again, I learned so much watching that episode, like researching for that episode. I can't take that away. That's fucking amazing. Number 6, episode 368, Zionists are breeding new anti-Semitism. I think it's pretty self-evident why that one ended up ranking so high. To me, it's really just like, again, like kind of like learning a bit more like that spirit. It's just like weird. Number 5, episode 355, Thoughts on H3H3. Bro, like just learning about H3H3 and all that drama, just getting involved in all that is just fucking insane. Number 4, Fireside Chats episode 313, the 2024 Mexican presidential election. Because honestly, I wanted to put a different a video of like a foreign election one. But again, 2024 Mexican presidential election was the one I probably knew about the most. So naturally, it was just going to be the one that I think would represent it the best. Episode 332 is on number 3. I Hate Joe Sign Now. I think it's pretty self-evident why that one gets to that ranking. Number 2 is Let's Talk About the Star Wars Fandom, where I finally put all of my feelings of the Star Wars IP and finally get into fully going into all the drama in regards to the Star Wars fandom drama. And number 1 is episode 352, the copyleft episode. Because honestly, I just really like that episode. Teaching people more about the copyright issue is kind of going to be a somewhat goal of mine moving forward. And it's not going to be the main focus, but it's just going to be a thing that I am going to focus a bit on. It's just going to happen. All right. Now, finally, the top 10 best E Pluribus Unum videos of the entire 7 years thus far. Coming in at number 10, we have top 10 third-party performances post-1900. It really gets all the way up here purely due to nostalgia. If it wasn't the first, it wouldn't be this high, but it's the one that started it all, and hey, it deserves some mention. Number 9, top 10 E Pluribus Unum screw-ups of 2023. Similarly, it was kind of built to be a finale, and despite the fact that it's again out of date because I was 50 pounds heavier, it still also technically is the first face reveal, so that also is something. It was a video that was basically a year in the making, and sure enough, it did do at least a decent job in my end. Number 8, what if the US had a 10-party system? Yes, it's a bit weird that a video that rips off another YouTuber, at least, it doesn't rip off the, rip off, but it's it's kind of weird that one that is clearly mimicking the style of JJ McCullough is the one that ranks high, but it's just because I really have enough faith in the video's content itself that I actually think that this is probably the most accurate way to do a 10-party system in the United States. Number 7, the Squirrel and Hedgehog video. Because again, just the inherent concept of this series is weird, and just the fact that the video itself turned out really good, and the fact that the show itself was freaking good, it's just weird. Number 6, Magneto is a bad guy. I'm able to explain the Israel-Palestine conflict through this. It literally even led to people coming into my comment section and getting mad at me for pointing out the literal direct comparisons between the evil comic book bad guy and Israel. I'm just saying, you don't want to be compared to them, don't do the things that he's literally doing. Number 5, History of the Communist Party USA. I was tempted to put the PRD video here because it's, again, fresher on my mind. But honestly, I just have to give the slight edge to the communist part of the video because it's been around longer. And yeah, I just generally think that it's a pretty good video. I mean, it's definitely like the party history video that seemed to be like, at least for a little bit, it would be a good one to like be like prominent enough. And yeah, I'm very proud of it. Number 4, who is Ernest Lundeen? Choosing a who is episode was a little bit complicated because I was a little bit tempted to put Shulgos here, but Lundeen got here purely because his story is just way more fascinating to me. It's just weird. It's just honestly really weird that his particular story just got way more fascinating to me than literally fucking Shulgos. Number 3, Andor is left-wing, so is Star Wars. This video is, again, literally best Star Wars video. No question, no ifs, ands, or buts. You should watch it if you haven't already. Or better yet, just watch Andor again, because, I mean, I can contend it's not anything new in regards to, like, you know, drama in regards to Andor, you know, shitting on Star Wars theory or whatever. It's not even necessarily anything new in regards to what I've said in the video already, because I've already done, like, the other Star Wars fandom podcasts where I also shit on Star Wars theory. But the Andor video was a good video, long time coming, and I really like it. Episode number 2, why copyright is worthless. That episode, again, ranks really high because I really want people to know more about the copyright issue and want people to be more radicalized on the copyright issue. It's the issue that I think is probably the best one to radicalize people on because it's just so fucking interesting. And I can actually do it way better for people all across the political spectrum. But yeah, I just think it's interesting and I want more people to talk about the copyright issue. I've been desperately trying to get Mr. Beat to try and do a copyright-related case on Supreme Court briefs. Maybe you guys can help me out on that. But lastly, but certainly not least, number 1, Mexican political parties explained. This video definitely deserves the number 1 spot in regards to view count. 100%. Because I know so much about Mexican politics, and it's an actually well put together video. It's generally really good. I would contend, again, best episode. So yeah, that is the final EPU episode of the year. Feel free to comment some of your favorite episodes, especially if they haven't been mentioned in this video. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and click the bell to find a future video when it comes out. And if you want more content from me, consider supporting me on Patreon. See you all in 2026.